Every sports fan has an opinion. Well, these are ours. Welcome to Brock and Pep's Unsportsmanlike Convo.
Right.
And here are your hosts, Brock Fleming and Pep Cariotti.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. January 4th, 2022 in the house. I'm your host, Brock, and with me, as usual, is none other than Pep Talk 32, P-Dog Cariotti. How you doing, bud?
Emotional.
Are you?
Big Ben's last game last night, I was in tears the whole night. I mean, I grew up watching the guy since 2004. I was still living at my mom's during his rookie year. So you grow up with a guy, and you know how it is, Brock. Like, you're the same passion you have for the Panthers, the Gators, and Tebow, and there's an emotional attachment to a guy that you followed through their career. And I have the same attachment with Big Ben and the Steelers in general, but Big Ben in particular, because I haven't missed a single snap of his career. So to watch it kind of unfold last night and watch him cry, and it was like it just brought me back basically 20 years. I was in my 20s, so it was pretty cool.
I was tearing up a little bit too. That was basically because of the way they played, but I mean, it's it's what it
buddy,
is.
It's par for the course. It's been like this all year.
It is bad.
It's bad, and it's bad on a lot of levels. But I don't blame Ben, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, part of it's on him, but the receivers are just not very good. Tell me your assessment of Claypool later. We could talk about it, or bring it. I want to talk about it now. But like, what do you think of Chase Claypool?
Well, we'll talk about it with the NFL a little bit
Yeah.
later. So we're going to do a little bit of college, bowl game wrap up, and we'll also do some NFL where it is now. But
I want your opinion on him because you watched him a bit last night, and
watch the whole thing. The Steelers are going to be awful for a little bit unless they get somebody to. Anyway, some big changes need to happen there. Anyway, okay, a couple things. One, did you have a good holiday? It's a couple weeks. We had a couple weeks off, some family, friend time, whatever. Obviously, we're still in some lockdown situations. Restrictions have come in, so I know those are affecting you. We've had the World Junior Championships were canceled over the holidays, something that I personally look forward to every year. We're hearing stories of the Russian junior team being escorted off a plane because they're in the back with no masks and trying to smoke cigarettes and something else. Very, very Russian, I think. But
yeah,
I mean, regardless of what they're used to or what they think they're entitled to, you got to kind of conduct yourself a bit more class. So some of those stories sort of came out this week. But is there anything over the holidays that felt like normal for you? Like, were you able to enjoy them?
I mean, as best as I could. Time flies, because the last time we did a show, Omicron wasn't even a real thing. Like, it was just sort of, if it was coming out, it was just like, it hadn't even reached Canada yet, I don't think. So everything seemed so normal, and all of a sudden, 100 cases, 300 cases, 1,000 cases, and then all hell breaks loose. So from a standpoint of normalcy, no, not really. Like, we all had to adjust our plans with Mom, and I took my vacation time from work over the holidays, and I wasn't able to do anything. I had Raptor tickets, I had to cancel those. I had other plans, and the Raptors game that I wanted to go see was actually canceled. So from that perspective, I always make the best of it, right? I recharge my batteries at home, but to not be able to watch the World Juniors, which I really love in terms of hockey. Like, I'm a big critic of the NHL, but I love the World Juniors, and I was really looking forward to watching that team with Bedard and all the stars and that McTavish kid, and I'm like, this is going to be fun. Yeah, and 3 games in, they cancel the whole tournament, which I think is a little bit absurd.
Considering the NHL was able to do a bubble style, and I think you would, or I would hope that, and it was very much the same arenas and same cities, I think, involved. So it should have been pretty easy
totally.
to go and say, let's just follow the same restrictions we have with the NHL and let's get through this. Now, you need to not have any fans, I guess, or limit those. So there would have been, some logistics, but I think on a world stage like that, you can make it happen.
I think the IIHF is cheap. And I think in order to pivot on the fly like that would have cost them extra money. And I just think overall they're cheap. So what's the easiest thing to do is pull the plug. That's my opinion.
Yeah, well, you're probably right. Okay, Netflix. I'm going to be the first
I wasn't expecting.
Well, I think we're having some issues with the CCB connection, whatever. So I'm kind of doing 8 things at once. But
okay,
there's been people who've talked about this F1 series on Netflix, where it's like it's a documentary kind of thing, following the racers, following the the staff and the events, all that kind of stuff. And people are actually getting excited for the next F1 season because of this.
Cool.
And I'm wondering, have you seen it? Do you think that has a big impact on it? Because I gotta say, I've been watching Ted Lasso over again because I love it, and I almost want to watch soccer because of Ted Lasso. And then I realize when I do watch soccer, that's got nothing to do with it.
Yes.
But I can see it where it garnishes a little bit of interest, and you start to, understand some a sport that you may not have otherwise watched. And I'm wondering, are there other sports that could benefit from, a series like that is attracting a new audience, explaining the sport, explaining all that kind of stuff. I'm just wondering, would you think that, I don't know, I'm thinking the CFL or something. Could anybody benefit from that?
100%. The fact that we're even having a conversation about it is exactly what F1 wants. And Dan Duran just wrote darts, which, I love watching the darts guys on 180. I mean, that got me into watching darts and even playing darts. But from a perspective of the F1, I mean, you couldn't pay me to watch an F1 race. And now if I watch that documentary, maybe I'll be more inclined to catch it. I don't know. Yeah, for sure. Totally. The fact that you're even talking about it, right, is, case in point.
Okay, well, anyway, I'm going to apologize for everybody who's on the Cap City Beats. The links are not working properly, and I think even the audio one is not working. So we are going to be Facebook, YouTube exclusive ce soir, which is fine. Okay. One of the other sports that we've been playing over the last little while is fantasy football. So for those
do we have music for that?
Football, I don't have a fantasy football intro, but I do have a fantasy football champion. Joining us this evening is none other than fantasy football champion and fantasy. I don't know if we have a name for our league, but Mike Dean is the champion of our first fantasy football season, and he is with us audio only, it seems. Mike, you with us?
Yes, sir. How's it going?
Good. I told you I would give you an opportunity to get on the show and gloat a little bit about your first year in the Fantasy Football League and taking home the belt.
That's quite the intro song. I like that one. And
John Cena?
It does seem like a special win, with the kind of the inaugural season. I know we had a few test seasons, but it is nice to come away with a win for the first one for sure.
Look, you beat a friend of the show, Scott Endicott. Somebody we all know, and it came down to the wire, and he was projected to win. He had Justin Jefferson going in that last game, and he needed Jefferson to get maybe 8 points more or something like that, and he just got shut down kind of by the Packers. But I know that Scott was making move after move, and he was overthinking every possible scenario, and it kind of came back. But it was a tight race. What did you do differently, Mike, that you think propelled you to victory? Because also producer Mike Pignat was also at the top of the leaderboard all season, and you took them all down. What did you do differently?
Mike Pignat definitely had a good team this year. I think he had the most points for the full season. And Scott, he takes his trades and draft and waiver wire pretty seriously. I think he wins the award for most moves. Every year. Every year. And in the last game, the last matchup, I think it came down to, I think I won by 8 points or something like that. So beating Scott was definitely icing on the cake. It's definitely a good group of guys all around. But beating Scott in the final matchup when I know he takes it so seriously was pretty nice.
Well, let's put it this way. Yeah. We all know who won Super Bowl I, right? Green Bay. Nobody remembers who wins Super Bowl II and III and IV. So congratulations, pal.
Well, thank you, appreciate that. And as for strategy, I think my only strength is my actual lack of football knowledge compared to the other guys in this league. Like we got Brock, Dandran played, college football. Scott is a football coach.
Yeah, but then they'll start to overthink. They'll overthink things,
Exactly. So I rely heavily on the projections and kind of the latest news section on the player. And I guess I approach it a little bit more from the analytical side. And all I have to go on is projections. I don't have the football knowledge to know who these backbencher guys are. So, and it was interesting. I actually drafted last. So we did a snake draft and I was the last.
Forgot about that.
I was number 8.
You were the Tom Brady. So. You're the Tom Brady of the draft this year.
And I got lucky on a few draft picks. I got a few sleepers. I think Justin Herbert. I think I got him in the 4th round. He ended up being the number 2 overall quarterback. Obviously, I got Jonathan Taylor first overall. He was a win. But then, and then who was the other guy? Deebo Samuel. I think I got in the 13th round. And he ended up 3rd overall. Really? So, and that one was
those are the guys that will propel you to victory. Is when you get guys that are producing like a 1st or 2nd rounder, but you're getting them in the late rounds, and you did that very well. And there's an advantage. Hey, being first, everybody wants to be first draft pick, whatever. I don't know. I would almost prefer to be the 12th, especially in a 6 or last pick in a snake, because then you get 2 picks really quickly. And then it takes that whole decision making out of it. Otherwise, people are taking Christian McCaffrey and the first overall pick, and he's getting hurt. Like there's a lot of risk. By the time you get to yours, it's almost set for you. So 8, 9 you would take, but all those uncertainties have been taken away from you. So you get a chance to just kind of roll with it. Which
didn't Taylor have like 5 touchdowns against the Bills or something like that? Didn't he have a game where he scored 5 TDs?
Oh yeah, he had some crazy games this year. Yeah, and obviously the injury to Derrick Henry kind of ensured Taylor would be the top of the running back league. But right, yeah, I think I went Jonathan Taylor, Tyreek Hill, number 8, number 9, and then obviously a few duds. I think I had AJ Brown in the 3rd round, so he just did not perform this season. But
not to expectations, but those guys usually bounce back pretty good the next year. And Tennessee's fighting a few injury bugs and stuff too, and getting through it. But anyway, congratulations on your victory. You can celebrate. And do you have any last messages for the league as we move into off season and getting into the next year? Because this is a keeper league, so you are going to be building off of the team you have. We'll be engaging Pierre in our season wrap-up meeting, because we're doing things a little bit differently in this league, where to keep the draft interesting, every owner is going to vote one person per team that they want to see thrown back into the pool. But each owner gets a chance to block one person as well. So we need a neutral party, which will be you, where everybody gets to put in who they're blocking. And then when we do the votes, you'd be able to know who's being blocked and whatever, and you can kind of play those cards as they go. But it's a little bit different, a little less tracking. A lot of places do, like, oh, you can keep them for 2 years, and you got to track 2 years, or there's a draft pick involved, or there's whatever. This one is like end of the year, we get together, hopefully Super Bowl weekend, and we'll have those votes in person, and we'll see who's back in the pool moving forward. But otherwise, you have the same team. So, Mike, any last words you want to say to the chumps, that includes myself, who are in this league losing to you?
Yeah, Brock didn't have the best year this year. He had a different strategy.
Hey, don't make this personal. I'm just saying.
No, but I was interested in your strategy and learning from it, because you went with you were heavy on the rookies, playing the long game. And that was interesting to me. I haven't been a part of a league like that before, so I did take note, and that was a cool strategy, and I'm sure it'll pay off in the long run. But a message to the league, let's keep up the chirps in the chat room. Looking forward to maybe an expansion year down the road if we got a few more guys interested. And my parting message, and just a thought about the juniors and how the Russians acted. I think maybe, obviously they're young, they're still have a lot of maturing to do, but I think they were also maybe sending a message about how upset they were that they're, the biggest moment of some of their lives is over. So yeah, they acted out. They shouldn't have.
I think it's a bit of a protest.
Yeah, it might have been something like that. Something for you guys to chat about, but maybe I just think they were.
You can't go home if you're not allowed to take off and kick us off the flight. So
Team Canada. Was it not another team on there too? You mentioned there was two teams, wasn't there?
Too. Check.
Yeah, so there might be something to that story. That's possible.
But I mean, that's a valid point. Like, these are arguably, for at least half the team, is probably the biggest moment of their hockey career, is getting a chance to do that and play in that tournament. So.
Well, and when you get teams from all around the world, every country's handling COVID differently, right? So we don't know what the Czechs or Russians are doing in their countries respectively to handle COVID, and maybe they think this is ridiculous, and this could be like their way of protesting, like, hey, we're not canceling anything out in Russia, so what the hell are you guys doing? So yeah, I mean, that could be some merit to that.
Yeah. Well, on that note, I guess I'll let you get back to your family and
congratulations, Mike.
Your son.
Thank you. I'll relish this win until the next season takes it away from me, I'm sure.
Love it.
All right, Mikey, appreciate you coming on, and the league better watch out for you next year, because I feel like a back-to-back is in the realm of possibilities, my friend.
Instant Hall of Fame.
I hope so. Let's make it happen. Do some off-season trades.
All right. We'll talk to you later.
See you guys.
See you, buddy.
Okay, here's something that may or may not have thought it was coming up. I'm actually kind of glad that this isn't going to be on Cap City Beats tonight. This came up. My daughter had a sleepover. She found this. I thought I'd play it.
There's Pierre. Look how small Brock was.
Yeah.
So that was that was brought up and found somewhere. Thanks to my dad for finding that and showing my daughter. I stopped it prematurely because I can't hear your voice when it's playing, but I can see your face. And actually, we had Dan Danderan in the room there for a little bit, and there are clips of him as well somewhere. But it is an eye-opening video that's almost 30 years old, I think, at this point, 25.
Well, it would have been 1995, 96 probably. So
would have been 96. Yeah. So I was.
Well, that was uncomfortable.
It was. But the whole thing is uncomfortable.
Are you wearing a onesie?
I'm wearing shorts and a shirt. So for those who can't see, well, there's no audio of this. It's on the video. You watch it. But if it's a podcast and you're catching up on it, it's a video from back in the day. We did a fashion show thing for somebody said I deserve to have that footage on CCB. That must be Kwame. If it is, boss man, I apologize. I took the links twice. I don't know why it wasn't working. So it might be something on my side. Anyway, that it goes longer. It's a fashion show. It's bad. It's very, very bad video, television, whatever you want to call it.
It's a recording. It's a camcorder.
I'm not even talking about the quality of the video. I'm just talking about what's on the video, Pep. It is not good.
You and I half naked in a talent show? Yeah, that's gonna traumatize a lot of audience. That was like the nighttime gear or whatever. That was like the bedtime.
Yeah,
I'm in boxers and a tank, and you're wearing a onesie. Or
I'm wearing 90% of my own clothes in that fashion show too, because all the places that were sponsored were like nothing was big enough.
Yeah, I remember shopping for some of that stuff. Oh wow!
And I also
I didn't see that coming, pal.
No. As well you would. And that was, again, a text message I get from my daughter who's on a sleepover. So I wasn't expecting it either.
Oh,
took me by surprise, and I was
that's good.
completely sidelined. Okay,
Yeah.
so we are going to get into the next segment. I just saw the champs thing. It says you got to play that again. So much to take in. It's true. If I could hear your voice while we were doing it, I would have more clips of that. But we might have to start a paid section where you just get to watch that.
OnlyFans.
I was going to say that, but I knew what that was. Okay. Peps OnlyFans. Oh my God. This is off the rails.
Wow.
First of 2022. All right. College football. Did you watch any college football? You must have.
What did I? Yeah, I watched a little. I watched a little bit of the Georgia game. Obviously, it wasn't very close. So I didn't tune in. And I'm starting to understand now what you keep talking about in terms of the competitiveness and that those power conferences versus like the other teams just don't have a chance. They just can't compete. And there's definitely you're going to get your one Cinderella once in a while, but they just can't compete 9 times out of 10. And you're seeing that. So, I mean, does Georgia have a chance against Alabama? Are those the 2 best teams that belong in the final? Is that what we're dealing with?
Oh, 100%. And we knew that when they played each other. The
you
first game was still pretty good. Georgia put up 21. Their offense didn't play as well as they should have. Their defense still played okay. Alabama beat them. You know what I mean? They did. But I told you during that game that I thought that Bama had a loss already. But if Georgia loses that game, I feel like they will meet again in the finals, which they are. But I feel like Georgia will come out and win that game.
Yeah.
And I'm always of the side of, if you play twice in a season, the team that loses the first game comes back a little bit stronger and more motivated and making the adjustments and stuff where, although Nick Saban's a different cat, sometimes when you win, you kind of follow the same guidelines, the same game plan to beat them the second time, but you need, and then try and adjust on the fly. But it means Georgia is going to be putting a lot more effort and time into probably changing some of their approaches with Alabama. And Alabama is going to be on the side of needing to adjust to what Georgia is then bringing, which sometimes, again, these are college kids still. Some of those things, those adjustments that are made mid-game aren't always the easiest to implement. As good as these players are, they're still college athletes, right? So there's always that risk. I think if Georgia's offense plays, the way they did against a very good Michigan defensive team, they had a Heisman finalist on the defensive end, and Georgia's offensive linemen, I mean, they were handling them. They handled the offense and the defensive line. And Michigan had the best offensive line in the country this year. They were voted best. They won that award. And Georgia dominated that line of scrimmage from a defensive line perspective. So that's where these beasts from Georgia are going to come into play. Now, Alabama is very good. So it's going to be a different story, but I think Georgia comes a little bit more prepared than they did the first time. Yep. They were, undefeated. I think there's a bit of, I don't know, almost, it's like the pressure was all on Georgia. When you're undefeated and Bama had already lost one, it's like, oh, this is our chance. Everybody's putting us on stuff. Hey, you've lost now. Now the pressure's on Alabama. Now Alabama is expected to win because they've already beat them once. I feel like that pressure is on them a little bit more. Anyway, who knows? Bama, again, is a different beast. I brought that up today. The turning point for Alabama football was related to, we were having a discussion about drinking and driving and that kid for the Raiders who got DUI, and then there's a couple of things going back and forth, and there was something about him asleep in his car. But Carlos Dunlap was charged with DUI or something as well at Florida for being asleep in a car. I can't remember if it was parked or if it was at a red light. If it was at a red light, but anyway, he was charged with it. Ended up being suspended for the SEC championship game, and allowed Alabama to win that game because with Dunlap in. It's a totally different story because he was unblockable off the edge. So he would not have been given, I think it was A.J. McCarron, time to throw the ball that much. So totally flipped the game. Bama won that game. and went on and has been on a roll ever since. And I think that if Carlos played that and Florida wins that game, Florida is still on that roll that Bama is on right now, because it was right after that one that Urban Meyer then left, or the year after, I think, is when he left, and something else. Anyway, so it just really started that whole shift in SEC power. Anyway, bowl games are good. Semifinals, whatever. Here's the bowl games that really excited me for the week.
Mm-hmm.
We had the Fiesta Bowl, which was Oklahoma State versus Notre Dame. Don't know if you saw it, but Notre Dame was up 14 or something at halftime, ended up losing 37-35. I had a text message from a buddy who was a Notre Dame fan, telling me I could jump on the bandwagon if I want to. There's still room. This was that didn't age well.
No.
So they lost, and Notre Dame's lost, I think, 10 of the last bowl games, like big bowl games, meaningful bowl games they've been in. They've lost the last 10. Like, they're just not competitive. Well, it's competitive, but whatever. I'm going to trash Notre Dame as much as I can. Kentucky, Iowa. Kentucky had a last-minute drive, came back to beat an Iowa team, a very strong Iowa team that was up top 5 at one point. So happy for Anwar Stewart and those guys, that coaching staff. What they've done in Kentucky is really, really good. But that's the Citrus Bowl, so they came back to win that game.
That's a big win for that organization, because they're Kentucky is a basketball town, and always it really has been. So nice to see them on the map.
Yeah, they're really making a shift there, and is it Stoops? I think it's Bob Stoops' brother. Is that anyway? The coach for Kentucky is really making headway in the recruiting avenues, which is everything in college football. And what they're doing in Kentucky and being competitive and winning games against teams like Florida and teams like Tennessee. I don't think they've beaten Georgia in a little while, but they're there. They're competitive, and some of the SEC West games is too. So Kentucky did a very good job, again, beating the Big Ten, Iowa, which is one of their strong ones. The Utah, so the Rose Bowl, Utah versus Ohio State. Now, this game was back and forth. Utah came out just on fire, and they had those stories, right? There was the one guy, I don't have the names of this. One was a guy was an accidental shooting, shot himself in some accident. And then his best friend, Lowe, who was one of the quarterbacks, changed his number from 2 to 22, wore his 22 as a quarterback. And then after one of their games this season was murdered at like a house party or something like that. So 2 guys, both wearing 22 sort of at the time that they died. So they're going through that tragedy. And for Utah to come out and play the way they did, it was very inspirational. They really came out on fire. Ohio State had a couple of guys that were sitting out, like some key Olave and Wilson, or 2 of the best receivers in the country. And no, these are the same old glasses, but I appreciate it. I don't know who that is. But anyway, 2 of the best receivers are on the shelf. They opted out. So it's kind of like, what are you going to do? A lot of people took the under. This thing went back and forth. And the emergence of the new receiving core in Ohio State has shown up. So that includes Marvin Harrison Jr. So
very famous name. Very famous
name. Marvin, one of the best receivers to ever do it out of Syracuse and Colts and everything. He's now got a child who's a top receiver in college football, or is working his way up. So he went for like 6 for 71 or something, like a pretty good day. But his colleague, if you will, or his teammate Smith, I can't even pronounce his last name, Njiba, went for 347 yards receiving. Like, he was
insanity,
uncoverable. It was the bowl record for receiving yards and stuff. Anyway, they just went toe to toe with them, and then Ohio State ended up coming back and winning at 48-45. So a very, very good game. It was, again, very emotional from the Utah side, but there was a lot of sub stories there that were great to watch. I'm not even going to talk Coastal Carolina and Northern Illinois, although from a game perspective, it was back and forth. And I think Northern Illinois was stopped at like the 1 yard line that would have put him in for the go ahead touchdown. So it was a tight one. And the only other one I'm going to talk about is Purdue and Tennessee. Went back and forth.
Great game.
5 touchdowns in, I think, 3 minutes. And Tennessee, as much as an SEC East guy, I'm not a big Tennessee fan, but they really got screwed because they scored a touchdown, and the ref said that his progress had stopped. So even though the whistle happened after the running back put the ball in the end zone and whatever, he said that the intention was that it was stopped beforehand. And there was nothing in that video that showed that his feet stopped moving or anything. So it really should have been Tennessee's ball game, but
a tough call. I was watching that. It's a tough call. Like you don't blow it, and then there's a fumble. Like there's so many variables and the refs have to deal with when you're doing the forward momentum call. And
the fourth down, you fumble it, humble it too. You know what I mean? Like, the only thing that can either you get in the end zone or you're stopped, fumble the ball, whatever, it ends up being turned over. You don't get in at the end.
I think in pro football and college they should change the rule to the entire football has to cross the goal line. I mean, enough of this barely break the plane stuff. It'll eliminate this kind of stuff. If that football isn't completely within the end zone, like a puck crossing the goal line, then it's not a touchdown. That's my take. And then to maybe counteract that in the NFL, anyways, go 1 foot in bounds. Like there's ways that
I like the 1 foot in bounds. I like those kind of things. I think the ball crossing. It's really 6 and 1/2 a dozen the other. The goal line is this long. So say the goal line is the length of a football, and you say, well, the whole football has to go through. Well, instead of crossing this line with the football, now you just got to make sure the tip crosses this line, because once it crosses that, then the whole football is past this line or whatever it happens to be. So it's
another option.
I think it's just 6 and 1/2 a dozen the other. It's always going to come down to these. It's a game of inches. Al Pacino said it best. And
true story.
Whatever. 1 foot in is definitely the case. But anyway, the whole landscape of college football is going to be changing. I don't understand how the bowl games have lost importance. If they're not a playoff bowl game, it seems like more the kids just opt out. Nobody's opting out of a playoff game. So there's always this, hey, let's expand the playoff. So there's more bowl games that mean something. Less people opt out, and we get more quality football. Thing is, we're seeing with 4 teams, 2 of them are head and shoulders above the other, and that seems to be kind of par for the course for the last playoff since they've been in. So if you're just going to say, 1 and 2 are that much better than 3 and 4, then how much better are they going to be from 5 and 6? There's no point of extending the playoffs for that. So I think with the NIL and all that kind of stuff, I think they need to start paying players in the bowl games. You still want to opt out, that's fine, but that's $50,000 or $100,000 or something like that you're not getting. That you may otherwise have done it. I think insurance companies need to be brought in a bit more that can cover something that says, like a Matt Corral for Ole Miss, opted to play, great, respected them, great, crazy. It's going to be a great game. He gets hurt. How bad is it? Does it drop his stock from a 1st round pick to like a 4th round pick? And all that kind of stuff, So over the next couple of years, college football is going to have a major, major overhaul somewhere, and things are going to be changed. It's just a matter of which way is it going to go. But I'm excited to see what happens, because there's just a lot of things that are happening, a lot of moving parts, and I want to see what happens with these athletes and these programs.
As long as I'm a casual fan, so as long as the 2 best teams play in the finals, I don't really care how they get there.
Well, they're all getting to the finals anyway. We got a comment from a Facebook NHL Oilers versus Leafs. Which Canadian favorite wins tomorrow, and what is your guess on the score? Brackets Ferreira. He also says, "Am I late? Did we talk NHL already?" No, we didn't.
No.
Who you got?
Oh God, I mean, I'll go Leafs. Actually, Austin Matthews has COVID, so I don't know if he's not playing. Then that's a big blow. So, I'll go Leafs. Honest to God, Mike, I'm having such a hard time getting into hockey with so many cancellations and now no fans in basically in Canada. The barns are empty. It's like, here we go again. We saw clearly last year the Canadian bubble. I mean, we saw last year that Montreal made it to the Cup final in a normal season, and I had mentioned that last year. In a normal season, I don't even think Montreal makes the playoffs, and lo and behold, they're like Montreal 7-21. So to watch these 2 teams play each other with no fans, I'll go Toronto just because I think Toronto's been playing some good hockey, and Oilers have been slumping. But man, I haven't watched any hockey. I'll be flat out honest with you. Not a single game Too many cancellations, too many of this, too many games where half the roster is out with COVID and the league doesn't cancel the game. I mean, if I'm the Sens, I'm furious with that. Like they forced the Sens to play 5 or 6 games at the beginning of the year with half their roster on the COVID list. So yeah, I mean, that's a good question. We haven't talked hockey. We barely talk hockey, but Toronto, they're playing good hockey.
Yeah, but there's our reason for why we're not talking hockey, because it really does sort of take a bit of a back seat when, it's just not, I don't know, it's not fun to watch. Like, especially when there's so many things in the air and things being canceled and whatever, it's just not fun to watch.
I'll tell you what,
not fun to watch.
Did you catch the outdoor classic? That I thought that was actually a very entertaining game. It was like 6-4. I don't think I've seen that many goals scored on during those outdoor games where typically the ice gets a little choppy and I find the puck just bounces around the whole time. But it was cold, but there was 6-4 for the Blues. I think they beat Minnesota. Really cool atmosphere, and I like the fact that there were 10 goals scored in a outdoor game. I thought that was really cool. So
was it 5-6-4?
The 6-4, yeah. I thought that was pretty entertaining. But again, it was just
like minus whatever, wasn't it?
Yeah. So, but I mean, aside from the actual game and some of these regular season games, I barely tune in. I mean, it's just not exciting hockey. The chip and chase, and then the 20-second shifts, and I mean, I don't know. I'd much rather watch some of these Sportsnet classics that we're catching over the holidays. There, I know you had mentioned you were watching a vintage game. It was a Toronto. You had mentioned Toronto was playing or something like that. Toronto and the Blues, maybe.
No, it was the Detroit St. Louis Game 7 of like the 96 or something Stanley Cup final.
Oh, Gretzky was in there.
It was Gretzky was with the Blues. Brett Hull, Craig McTavish, Pronger, you name it. And it was the one where Yzerman came down the right wing and slap shotted it from just inside the blue line and had that vintage shot from just behind the goalie where it hits top corner.
I think it was John Casey in nets.
It was John Casey in nets. Yeah. He had, Yzerman and Fedorov and, Konstantinov and Lidstrom and just anyway, it was just endless Hall of Famers on this ice.
Yeah.
And just seeing them kind of all playing together and bringing back to that was kind of fun. I was trying to explain it to Jackson, and I was just like these guys are all phenomenal.
Oh my God.
Anyway, it was cool.
Yeah.
Fedorov with the white skates. I'm like, I had a pair of those.
The Detroit jersey was the beginning of some of those, like the left wing lock and the center ice trap. And we saw the game take a turn mid to late 90s and into the 2000s, and teams like Carolina were making the finals. And outside of maybe a couple of years, that's when we really saw hockey sort of clamp down on each other, and the rules have had to be adjusted so for more offense. But I don't know if it's really worked. I mean, the stats show that there's some more goals happening, but it's the kinds of goals that that are just not very entertaining, like the ricochets off 10 guys, or having to screen the goalie because the goalies are so big. So I'm just having a hard time with hockey the last couple of years. I'm trying, guys. I'm trying to watch it. I'm trying to get involved so we can have discussion, but I don't bring a lot to the table. And now that Montreal is so bad, they're hard to watch. They really are hard to watch. It's a combination of like no talent and not trying very hard. And I don't know how their coach still has a job. Did he take them? Was he responsible for them going to the Cup Finals? No. I don't think he was responsible to go to the Cup Finals. I think that bubble was perfectly suited for Montreal. They caught fire at the right time, and away they go. But really, that was not a Stanley Cup caliber team playing Tampa Bay last year. So,
no. Anyway,
yeah.
I got to figure out how we can fade the music while we come back, because I don't know, it gets you leading an orchestra there. Anyway,
yeah.
NFL. Before we do really dive into the games, I wanted to bring up this thing I saw today. Was Chris Sims' top 40 quarterback list. I think I sent it to you, but Now, obviously, I didn't put a lot into the overlay because I should have taken our faces into consideration. But this is Chris Sims. Chris Sims, Phil Sims' son. This guy is supposed to understand football. And he's had multiple questionable lists, I think. But this is his top 40 active quarterbacks. And the list is on the screen, but your top 10 right now goes Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun, I haven't played all season, Watson, Russell Wilson, Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray at 7, Matt Stafford at 8, Dak at 9, and Tom Brady wraps up the top 10. What are your thoughts of Chris Sims and his list?
Well, I'm looking at the top 12, top 11, I should say. I'm good with. Maybe not that order, but he's pretty bang on. I would somehow find Jared Goff on the left column, and the way Baker Mayfield played the last couple of weeks, he might have to switch over to the right. I have no idea why Darnold and Cam Newton are in that column at all. So clearly, I don't know how old this list is. Is it recent? We'd have to.
Yeah, I think it was just tweeted out.
Yeah, so there's no reason Darnold and Newton are in the top 20. I would take Andy Dalton over both those guys. But those top 11, I would flip flop. For me, the number one quarterback in the NFL is Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah,
and I'm not a Mahomes fan because of kind of for what his little brother keeps doing, and I can't fault him for that. He's his own man. But I would put Mahomes at 2. Deshaun Watson, prior to the fiasco, is a top 10 quarterback. I don't know if I'd put him that high. I'm a huge Russell Wilson guy. I find Russell Wilson is exactly what you want in an NFL quarterback. He kind of does everything that Allen, Rodgers, and Mahomes does, but with a thicker frame. Maybe he's getting up there in years. They're having a tough year in Seattle this year. But I like Russell Wilson in like the top 3 or 4. But honest to God, those top 11, they're all interchangeable. Brady at 10, I might have him at like 1. That's how close all these guys are.
Okay, well, hey, I wanted to bring it up because, Rodgers is my number 1.
Yeah.
I think if I was to take anybody behind the helm, fantasy football aside, because there's a lot of leagues that, running quarterback, a quarterback that runs and gets some yards with his legs, like a Josh Allen, stuff like that, can put up some points.
Yeah.
But Rodgers would be my number 1. I would have Mahomes, Allen. But then I would be getting into like Tom Brady, might be at 4 for me, I like Joe Burrows. I like Justin Herbert. I like those guys more than they're on this list. But hey, I'm not going to get in and really diagnose everything. But this is, from a top 4 or 5, Deshaun Watson being on the list that high, given his situation, and maybe he never plays again. Who knows? I thought was a little bit weird. I thought, why is he even on the list?
Kellen Mond hasn't played a snap.
Yeah, where's he?
He's 37th. It's a bizarre, it's a bizarre list. I don't know where he's.
Big Ben's not even top 20. I ask you.
Well, if we're talking career, Big Ben's top 10. We're talking this year right now as we speak. I don't even think Ben's top 25. Like he's.
So Cam Newton is better than Big Ben right now?
No, I'd flip those guys, but I wouldn't. There are guys. Jared Goff would take Sam Darnold's spot, and you'd make an argument to that. Even Teddy Bridgewater's had a good year. That's a 500 team in Denver. They could be a lot worse. Justin Fields. I would take Fields over Ben, and right now, it's an interesting list. But Ben's receivers have not helped him at all, and maybe this is a good lead up to what I wanted to ask you. Yeah, for sure, because I have a hard time with Claypool, and it's not his maturity. It's not all the stuff that we saw the last couple of weeks. It's we're talking pure football. When we're talking about getting off the snap, getting off the bump and run and his inability to control his body off like 50-50 balls. Ben's throwing him up there, but there's sometimes I'm finding he's jumping for no reason. Like he's jumping because he's assuming he has to out jump the guy, but he's just not a smart receiver. Like he's not reading the ball properly, and Ben's putting it in a spot where in the past guys like Antonio Brown, I hate to bring him up, but I mean Brown would make those catches. Brown would find a way to get by his man and be more crafty. And I don't see that in Claypool. I certainly don't see that in Deontay Johnson, but I definitely don't see it in Claypool. I think he just reads the ball wrong.
I mean, I hate to bash him because he's a Canadian.
I'm past it.
Oh yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
He's a Notre Dame product as well, and I think that probably speaks for itself. Anyway, I just don't. I think in Notre Dame, that's all he was doing was out jumping guys down the line. But I think he's expecting to do that. I think I feel like there's some body awareness stuff still with him when it comes to catching the ball and getting his body in position to make an aggressive attempt at catching the ball or being in position to block off the smaller DBs, because he really needs to be able to use that frame to basically create that separation where the DB can only come through him to stop the pass.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's where, Megatron was really good at that kind of stuff. Demarius Thomas was really good at that.
Yeah.
The big receivers. Hey, Terrell
Owens. T.O. I was just about to say.
At that. And, his name is not as stale as I once thought it was. Because his name has popped up in talks for replacing Antonio Brown, I guess, with the Bucs for a few games.
Well, we're seeing some of these old guys sign on NBA team 10-day contracts as a COVID hardship contracts. I don't see why the NFL wouldn't consider bringing in a veteran guy who I just don't see it happening because, he comes with a lot of baggage as well. But I mean, it's different baggage, like Antonio Brown there's some mental health issues there.
100%.
Terrell Owens, one could argue that maybe he was undiagnosed, but Terrell Owens played hard. Like you didn't question his effort on the field. I mean, the guy played a Super Bowl with a broken leg. Like I don't think anyone's ever questioned T.O.'s effort or some of his decision-making on the field. And was he disgruntled when he didn't get the ball? Yeah. Would he flail his arms? Yeah, sometimes. But for the most part, he didn't take plays off. He played every play hard. And I don't know. I'm not a T.O. fan. But I think when you mature and you watch the league and you see some of these young guys acting the fool, you realize, oh, man, that might have been me at one point. And who knows? And I'd like to see an older player get another chance in the NFL. I mean, there's something to be said with if you still have the athletic ability. I mean, Larry Fitzgerald is not as athletic as he once was, so maybe that's why he's not in the league right now. But if Terrell Owens has that ability still,
but Terrell Owens has also been out of the league for multiple years now, so maybe and he's never been one who's out of shape. So he's constantly keeping himself in shape, and if you've taken no hits over the last 8 seasons. Maybe your body is fresh enough to last a few more games and help a team out. I think when you talk about like veteran guys, you would like them to be. I mean, the Bucs are probably the situation for him because of their veteran leadership. If he was trying to go to like a Pittsburgh and say, these guys can learn from T.O., I don't think that's the situation or the scenario that best.
Definitely not.
Strengths. So. But the Bucs would be, and it's one of those like, hey, and I think with Brady's reputation, with his respect and the respect that the league and the players give him, I think it's very much like an extension of how Belichick was with the Patriots. You bring in a guy that might have issues, like Antonio Brown lost it and whatever, but even that was kind of minor, like other than the show of him actually leaving kind of thing. Like, really, does that affect the team at all? Does that whatever? There's like, okay, moving on. And it's that, you give guys like that an opportunity. And like you said, Terrell Owens, it's a different beast in terms of attitude and the character. And I think he would bring a lot to fill some shoes if they have a need. But I don't know. Like you said, it makes for good TV. It makes for a good story. It makes for a reason for us to tune in to watch him run routes and play and see what happens. And if he wants to, I hope he gets an opportunity.
Yep. And I'll tell you, it's if I'm Chase Claypool, I'm watching film of Terrell Owens, and not the film of that's my quarterback. Oh, that's my quarterback. No, I'm talking the stuff on the field. Watch film of Terrell Owens because they're built similarly. I mean, they're both big frame guys. They both run very similarly. But Terrell Owens was a good route runner. And I mean that's the problem. And before I dump on anybody else, I do want to say this: Pittsburgh is now 8-7-1. The worst they can be is 8-8. That'll be the 15th consecutive year that Tomlin doesn't have a losing season. It's an NFL record. I'm going to give him his credit. I mean, that's pretty incredible in modern day NFL. That's pretty impressive. And so kudos to him and the organization. Yeah, they've been favorites to win or make the Super Bowl at least for a couple of years during Tomlin's tenure, and they didn't make it. But when you're playing no worse than 8-8, I mean, let's look at some franchises. I think Jacksonville would love to be in that position where they put a competitive team, and the worst they could be is 8-8. So, we've been pretty spoiled here in Pittsburgh. So, congratulations to Tomlin once again.
Congratulations, Tomlin.
Ben.
Again, I haven't given you anything, but Pierre has sent the congratulations for us all. I clicked some comment through YouTube that was Russian or something. So hopefully it's not somebody commenting on our comments about the Russian and Czechia teams. But you started getting a little choppy there too, so I thought maybe they're hacking us. Anyway, we're going to segue real quick as we're talking about the Jaguars. The Jaguars, yes, I was just addressing that. Did I see a little Russian on the screen? Yeah, somebody made a comment from overseas, so I put that up. I have no idea what it means. Hopefully it's not obscene by any so I don't know who's can validate that. Anyway, the Jaguars, the NFL's playoff scenario is fairly set, but there are some long shots that include your Pittsburgh Steelers, the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Urban Meyer first half season led team pulls out an upset against the Indianapolis Colts, then the Steelers would get into the playoffs. Is that right?
If Pittsburgh goes into Baltimore and beats the Ravens.
Sorry, Pittsburgh's got to beat the Ravens.
So the Ravens are eliminated, but it's a divisional game. I'm sure John Harbaugh would like nothing more than to avenge the loss from Pittsburgh earlier in the season. I don't know if Lamar Jackson is back. I saw some footage of him at practice. He could barely run. So they might have to start that Huntley kid again, who's played well. He plays and he plays a lot like Lamar Jackson, right? They haven't really had to change the offense much for him.
That's what's benefited them.
Yeah, for sure. So it's going to be a tight divisional game. There's a lot of things that have to happen, and I just don't see it happening. I don't see Indianapolis is playing for their playoff lives. I see them hammering Jacksonville, and it's all moot. So crazy things have happened. I think the other scenario is that no matter what happens, if the Chargers and the Raiders end in a tie, then both of those teams make the playoffs. So that would be pretty sketchy if that actually happens.
That would be. And you would think the fix was in.
Yeah.
Right now, so everybody is aware, the playoff seeds and the games as of today, Tennessee would have a bye in the AFC. And it would be Kansas City versus the Chargers, Cincinnati versus the Colts, and Buffalo versus the Patriots is what the wild card games would be. In the NFC, it says that the Packers would have a bye, and then it would be the Rams versus the Eagles, the Bucs versus the Niners, and the Cowboys versus the Cardinals.
Some great matchups.
That would be, I think I'm excited for the playoffs this year in the NFL.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what happens, what stories come out. I'm almost at a point where, like, I was never a Brady fan. I was never a Patriots fan, but now it's almost like he's got so many. It's like, do you just want to see him continue to win? You know what I mean? Like,
of course.
Greatness for what it is now.
Of course.
down the road when we look back and say, I didn't appreciate it as much at that time? Do we say, what, let's let that sink in? I don't know.
Let's look at Gretzky. I mean, when he was with the Kings, you hated him and didn't want them to win. But now, as his career was getting to an end, I wanted to see him continue to succeed with the Rangers. And, like even Derek, I hate the Yankees, but I like to see Derek Jeter, his last few at-bats. You were rooting for him, So this is a very similar situation. Anyway. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I think the NFL, hit the nail on the head with this additional playoff team, as well as the 17th week. I'm not sure if I'm digging the 17th week. Here's a question for you, Brock. So TJ Watt has 21.5 sacks. I think he's 2.5 sacks away from tying Michael Strahan.
Yeah, it was 23.5.
Yeah. So, but Strahan played a full season, right? But he played all 16 games. TJ Watt's going to have an extra week to accomplish that, but he's only played 14 games. So where does that stand if he's able to somehow get 2.5 sacks against Baltimore, which is going to be really tough to do? Is there an asterisk beside that because he's, there's an additional week, or do they factor in that he's only played what'll amount to 15 weeks due to injury and all that? So
I think with the sacks, it comes down to you say how many sacks in games played, right?
Yeah.
So you would say in 15 games, he's got 23.5. Strahan was in 16 games, got 23.5.
Yeah.
Strahan paid Brett Favre to lie down for the 23.5. There's an asterisk there as well. But, when it comes to those numbers, it's how many games, how many opportunities did you get? If they were both full seasons and they don't state that I heard 1.5. Anyway, we need a fact checker, I guess. If they don't say, if they just say full season in whatever it was, 2002 or whatever, the Strahan did it now in 2022, and it's a full season, there might be an asterisk saying there was 17 games, provided he played 17s, but that same asterisk would be he only played in 15 games. Like
exactly.
Usually how you would do that, because it's about how many opportunities.
Yep.
So if he played all of it, there'd be an asterisk saying this was a 17-game season. He accomplished that in 17, but he didn't. It was 15 because he missed multiple games. So it would be a better feat than Strahan. And ultimately it's more impressive to me. The more you go and the more athletic and dominating tackles and stuff that you're playing against, and schemes that you're playing against, the way they're running the ball and spreading it out, it's probably more impressive for what TJ's done.
I'm pretty happy for him, and that's quite the accomplishment. Like that's impressive, and they had like 9 sacks yesterday as a team. Cleveland's taken a step back. I mean, that was a AFC Championship team last year. Now that they were eliminated last week. So they got to fix things. Kevin Stefanski's under the microscope for not playing Chubb as much as he should have. Not just this week, but the last couple of weeks. Some really questionable.
That's like saying, "Well, yeah, Derrick Henry's healthy, but we're going to try and air it out all the time and not use him at all." And you say, "Well,
that's it." On top of that, Baker's playing with one arm. His off arm has a torn labrum. That's painful. So, you're trying to protect your quarterback. The whole thing didn't make any sense last night. So I thought they got out-coached, to be honest with you.
Like the Browns got out-coached?
The Browns did, yeah, sure.
The Browns, they out-coached themselves. It's just, I don't know.
Overthink things.
They wanted Pittsburgh. They wanted Big Ben to get that win. And it's hard. I mean, you can't just play straight up and just play slow when Big Ben's throwing 40 times for 120 yards or whatever it was. I can't remember the stats were, but it was
50% completion and 125 yards. But thank God Najee ran for a 188. So
they were all like 2-yard passes or something like that. Anyway, I remember seeing it and I was like, "Oh, that's not very impressive." But whatever. He won. Tears up. I'm not a Steeler fan. I'm not a Big Ben fan. I wasn't like emotional seeing him do that. And normally I am. Like, athletes, I feel for them. Ben, I didn't get that same feeling, but hey, it is what it is.
It is what it is, and you have to. I think you have to watch a player throughout their entire career, and I've never seen Ben do anything on the field to embarrass the organization. He's the first one to take the blame. Like, he's been the perfect player. for the perfect city. So I mean, I'm just a huge fan of his, and he's going to be sorely missed. You don't just find franchise quarterbacks. They don't just come along every day. So Pittsburgh's been pretty spoiled for 18 years.
I think you shared the clip too. It was at the draft room and all like the Eli Manning to Phillip Rivers and all that kind of stuff. Well, our fact checker, somebody put in that he's 1 sack away.
So, I mean, that's definitely doable.
Doable. It's going to be
such a
Huntley. He's
monster.
going to lie down for him.
Huntley's fast. Huntley's got some legs. Like he's kept them in games. So we'll see what happens.
All right. I think on that note, we're going to get out of here. That's an hour.
One more thing.
Yeah.
One more thing. Shout out to Shaq, who bought 1,000 PS5s for
TV in his house.
Didn't Big Ben win a Super Bowl not throwing one TD and throwing? Yes, that was the first one. It was his second year in the league, but he also threw for 300 yards and beat Denver, Cincinnati, and Indianapolis 3 in a row before the Super Bowl. So
It was just
yeah. Well, they also won the Super Bowl 2 years later, and he threw that pass to.
I feel like this
Yeah. Is that Curtis? Is that Curtis?
I'm not sure. It doesn't say the name, so they didn't check the okay for StreamYard. But I'm assuming.
What was Jim Kelly's numbers? Anyways, all right. Shout out to Shaq, who bought 1,000 PS5s and 1,000 switches for a school. I can't remember exactly where the school was, but he literally went into a Walmart and bought them, and bought like all the bikes off the rack. They basically cleared out a Walmart and he said, to see the smile on everyone's faces is just totally worth every penny of it. So Shaq owns he owns a franchise of restaurants. I can't remember what it's a popular name. I'd have to look it up, but he owns like 50 of them. He's
like
quite,
John, isn't it?
Something like that. He's quite the entrepreneur. Like he owns a ton of stuff. So love Shaq.
He gave his brother like some cash because like all my businesses are doing well. I just gave it to him, and he's like, "That's not for like, don't put that away. Like, go do something fun with it." Like,
yeah.
He's like, "You want that Rolls Royce truck? Like, go get it, whatever." So, you're like, well, that's a decent size check. And anyway, Shaq just seems like
love Shaq.
Just want to hang out with Shaq. You know what I mean?
Oh.
But he just does those things. The videos of just a couple of kids at the Mac store like playing on something, and he was like talking to them, and then he's like, "Yeah, box a couple of these things up for them," and gives it to these kids. And anyway, it's great.
Yeah.
Somebody's putting that Shaq is the end of the year, time for tax write-off. Quick. Hey, could be. Whatever. Either way, he's still doing it.
That's Curtis.
That could be Curtis. Yeah, the little accountant there. The tax write-off.
Yeah. Anyways, all right.
All right. On that, we're going to go out. Throw back the whole fashion show, probably back to some 90s music and stuff.
Oh, God.
The Smashing Pumpkins.
Ooh.
On there. So we're gonna go out to Smashing Pumpkins, Disarm. Everybody have a great day.
Peace out.
Kwame Bossman will be back on the CCB once we get that figured out. Be nice to everybody.
Cut you like you want me to. Cut that little child. Side of me and such a part of you. Ooh. Is burn. Is burn. I used to be a little boy, so in my shade. And what I choose is my choice. What's a boy supposed to do?